We have technical difficulties. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Her Money and Investing Show with yours truly, Jessica Perrone, founder of Her Financial IQ, where we're making money and investing concepts fun and approachable. For more on past episodes or even about the course offerings, you can go to herfiniq.com. Here at Her Financial IQ, we have an amazingly supportive community of women. So, as you come in, introduce yourself and feel free to ask questions during the broadcast. I always do my best to weave them through the conversation. And I also want to hear how I'm doing, or if there's any topics that you would like to know more about in the future. Today's topic is about elevating your personal valuation. We all know that wealth is about putting our surplus to work. But how do we even create that surplus? Well, the answer is simple, but not so simple at the same time. We need to spend less than we make. And frequently, there are two ideas that go along with this. That is, that you can either cut back on spending or you can increase the income you have coming in. At Her Financial IQ, we are committed to empowering women to take control of their finances and build a strong financial future. But if you're just starting out and you're just starting to build that surplus, or if you want to build a surplus, then our Before Investing course is the perfect place to start. This course will help you get your financial ducks in a row and build a solid foundation for your future. But what if you already have a surplus and you want to take the next step? Well, that's where investing comes in. And our Investing for Beginners course will help you figure out the best ways to put that surplus to work so that you can start building your wealth. So, whether you're just starting out or looking to take your financial journey to the next level, Her Financial IQ has a course for you. Our courses are designed to be accessible, informative, empowering, and above all else, fun. We believe that every woman deserves to have the knowledge and skills to achieve financial freedom. And today we have a special guest who will guide us through the process of elevating our personal valuation, increase our income, and build a surplus for our future. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce Wendy Schult, the authenticity coach, who is a certified professional coach and helps high achievers to clarify their own definition of success and create a practical plan to make their dreams a reality. Wendy had a successful 23-year career at ICO, a Goldman Sachs company, where she served as a financial planner and wealth manager. Wendy was also my mentor at the Coco, and she has just an amazing ability to see potential that lies beneath the surface, and just had such a natural and fun and enthusiastic way to help me clear paths to reach my goal. So sit back, grab a notebook, and let's start on our journey to elevating our personal valuation. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Jessica. It's great to be here.
I am so excited to have Wendy on the show today. And wait until you see Wendy and I going back and forth. I'm telling you, like, there just isn't enough time in 45 minutes to get through everything that we the rabbit holes that we go down, the ideas, the pontification that occurs. But Wendy, let's get started on personal valuation, because we can talk on a billion different topics here today, I'm sure. But what does personal valuation mean to you?
Yeah. Well, one way to think about your personal valuation is akin to the valuation of a company or a corporation. So if you think about the elements of a company having a mission statement, so knowing your why, a company having a vision, so setting out your long-term goal and a series of shorter term goals, a company, and so too an individual having assets, and some of the key assets being your brand, right? That's your reputation. Another aspect of your assets is your network, your mentors, your supporters, colleagues, supervisors, clients, all of that, your network. And then your expertise, right? What are your talents and what are your skills? So this is one way to kind of have a framework to think about the elements of your personal valuation, and then look at each one and say, how can I turn this up? How can I elevate?
So you've said in previous conversations together that your mission statement is almost like your why. And so can you walk us through the process of developing this, mission statement for yourself or your career?
Yeah, yeah. So your why, and Simon Sinek has this very well-known video about your why, and many of you may have seen this, and that's your mission. That's your umbrella motivation for what you're doing, and it's driven by your values. It's driven by something that is really important to you to achieve, or to give to the world, or to give to your employer or your clients, kind of regardless of your role, regardless of the tasks that you're doing. And this generally doesn't change tremendously through the course of your career and your life. I think about my why is kind of along the lines of, and I wasn't even conscious of it when I was younger. I'm probably become more conscious of it. It's kind of, hey, everybody should get what they want if they know what they want, if they know what that is, and they're willing to make other decisions and actions around that. That was true in my financial counseling life, and that's true in my coaching life. And I think about it like there's your why, that's your mission, and then you have your role, and that's the tasks that you do, the work that you do to carry that out. And then third, you have where you do it. Where is the entity, the company? What's its culture? Where are you carrying out the tasks for your why? And we often conflate all three of these, or two or three of these. And I would encourage your listeners to think about these three things separately. And particularly what I have seen in my experience, in my life working for a Goldman subsidiary and running a region there, was that you can, particularly for women, many people do this though, that they choose a less lucrative option to carry out their mission or their why. They choose a role and tasks that may not, there may be a more lucrative option. So that's what I would encourage listeners here to think about. You have certain values, you have a mission, and obviously you have certain talents and skills, but where else or how else could you do this that would align with what you value most and your gifts, but would pay more?
So, why do you think that people choose less lucrative positions? Like,
Yeah, I think
that's when you say that, you say choose, right? Is it a choice, or do they just not know, or like I want you to go a little bit more
yeah,
into this
that's a great, because
concept.
I'm using choose as a very loosely, but it's probably the opposite of choosing. It's just falling into it. So it's either, could be many different reasons. It could be because of kind of the limiting beliefs and limiting story and mindset of perhaps the family of origin that had good intentions. It's the peer group. It's lack of having kind of an imagination to think of other ways that I could do this.
Now,
So it could be for many reasons.
could it also be sort of like bringing into it your vision too? Sometimes people have limited visions of where they can go, and therefore may choose a role that isn't as lucrative. Could that sort of like tie into each other?
Well, I think that certainly can. I think that certainly can. But I just, use it just to make up an example here. Somebody's passion or vision or mission, maybe they want to, again, making this up, help um, abused children, help make their lives better, support them. So they think, well, I'm going to be a social worker and I'll go into the homes of these people. Okay, which is wonderful work,
Yeah.
but not what one would call lucrative
Right.
usually.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so that's one way to do it. That's one role to further that mission. Another possibility, again, just thinking of ideas, would be I'm going to be an attorney, and my mission is I'm going to be the one who's going down. I'm going to be a congresswoman, or I'm going to be working for an organization that changes the laws,
Mm,
or there could be many, many, many different ways. I'm going to have a very, very successful, lucrative business in an unrelated area, and I'm going to start a foundation to be able to
ah,
help and change this, or whatever, right? So there are many, many ways to do it. And again, I just encourage to think what your why is and then how you carry that out. I mean, certainly are interrelated, but
right.
they can be two different lanes. They don't, there's not just one way.
Got it. Now, in your vision, can there be like a long-term vision and like short-term vision? Like when you think about vision, sort of how do you recommend women think about it?
Yeah. So when you think about, one of the most compelling pieces of advice that I ever received was at a management conference that I attended, and a consultant was there, and our group was going very much round robin about some different discussions, and he stood up and he said, you need to manage the present from the future.
Oh,
And I think when you really sit back with that counsel, what that is saying, let me be intentional about where I ultimately want to be. In this case, that was in a business setting, but in this case, in my career and in my life. This may be where I want to be in 20 years from now, or maybe 5 or 10 years from now. It's not so much the time frame, but
wow.
it's further out. To have this sense of where I want to be in regards to the type of role, maybe how much responsibility, how much impact, the lifestyle I want to lead financially and otherwise, the income I want to have, however you want to think about this, have some formulation of that, and then say, that's my long term goal, right? It's very specific. I'm just making this up again. I want to
Right,
make
right, right.
out a year. I want to be able to live in a certain home or community. I want to have um, a certain types of clients I'm working with, at a book at a certain level, whatever it might be. So then, if you know that that's where I ultimately want to be, and that might change, your
Right.
long term goal might change over time, but you have this vision, then I'm going to manage today with that port in mind, with
Yeah.
that end in mind, rather than saying, okay, I just want to not knowing particularly where you want to go, I just want to make progress. So I'm going to inch along, gimp along, or take whatever gives me more money or power for the very short term, the next step. But what happens is often to achieve the greater end, there may be many things that we do in the shorter midterm that may move us along seemingly more slowly, and then it's going to really spike up. So we might take a job for a certain period of time that's lower paying, but we're going to learn a tremendous amount. We're going to build our connections in a certain way. We're going to have certain certifications or education that's going to, at the end, be further to help achieving, as opposed to just these little steps along the way.
Or in other words, improve your assets, right? I mean, really, like
Yes.
if you were to take a job like that, you would think of it as improving your assets as opposed to, oh, I'm taking a lower paying job. So like, let's talk about those assets. What do you think, Wendy?
Yeah. So your assets, I'm a big believer in your brand. I mean, you think about any company, their brand is a huge, huge, huge part of their asset, right? And your brand is essentially your reputation. And I would say you have a brand. Everybody has a brand. The question is whether you have intentionally created that brand and you intentionally maintain that brand. So Jeff Bezos says, right, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's your brand. And I'm a true believer in that. We train people how to see our brand.
Oh, interesting.
Right? We train people. And if we don't proactively do that, other people will take command of our brand. So we really, when you think about your brand, right, it needs to be genuine, right? So it needs to be true, something true traits that who you are, right? This is not deception. It needs to be sustainable. So there has to be a consistency in the brand. You think about McDonald's, right? Hopefully that's not the brand that I'm the most associated with, but that there's a consistency. You know what you're going to get anywhere in the world, right? If you go to Brooks Brothers, you're not going to have some kind of a trendy, type of an outfit, right? There are certain brands that have real consistency. And then your brand needs to be consisting of traits that are valued by your employer or your industry, right? So it has to be true to you. It has to be consistent and sustainable, and it has to be of value. And that's your responsibility to be conscious of what do I want to be known for? What are the aspects that I want to be known for? And then being the one to directly and indirectly communicate that out.
Now, okay, some people might be thinking out there, well, my brand is how I dress for work, but that's not really what we're talking about, right?
No, I mean, that can be one aspect of it. So that can be an aspect, your appearance, and it might be because you want to be seen as very polished or fashionable or up to date, or that you put a lot of care and conscientiousness into your attire. So that can be an aspect of it. It's not usually, one of the top. I mean, in certain roles, maybe if you work at Vogue magazine, but if you're working in a wirehouse, let's say, right, that might be a sub part of one of your other core brands, which might be, quality and excellence or something like that.
So what would be like something that you would say is part of your brand, the Wendy brand? Like just to give our viewers an example of
Yes. It. I mean, I would say, and again, it's interesting because it goes from my former life doing financial planning and management to my coaching, right? So this thread also runs through different professions. So I would say aspects of my brand probably three core parts of it. One being quality. So the quality of the advice in my previous world, the technical excellence, um, the professionalism, and that follows through today, right? Working with my clients, I'm on time. I am professional in my communications. I maintain the confidentiality, right? So that quality and professionalism. And then I would say connection, right? The warmth, the one-on-one relationships with
Yeah.
people and really connecting deep, right? That's another hallmark of my brands. Um, and then the third being, having growth, right? So in coaching, it's the client's growth and the spiritual, emotional um, growth within, but it's also was in my previous life, right? The growth of learning new things, the growth of the client's development in their plan. So those are my brand, and they also carry over, a number of times. So I've heard people say, right, well, do you mean my work brand or my personal brand?
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
I would venture to say you really have one brand. So unless you're not showing up in a genuine, authentic way, right? Then you've got all these different brands going. You have one brand. It's just how I connect and the warmth is going to be slightly different with a coaching client working on clarifying something versus my childhood friends on my back patio on a Saturday night, right? There's still the warmth, there's still the same, but it's showing up. It's the same brand, right? It's the cocktail dress brand of the whatever designer versus the Saturday morning hanging around brand or line of that same brand, right? Same brand.
Right. Well, I think about you and how punctual you are. Like if Wendy is not there, 5 minutes early, you worry about her, so it's
Well,
almost
that's
that.
the brand, right?
Yes.
And I got reconnected during COVID with a very close friend from childhood that I hadn't spoken to in many, many years. And we arranged a time, and I was to call her. And I called her right at that time. And she said, "Oh, yes, you were always so punctual." And I thought, like when I was like 12 and 17, right? So I guess I was, right? That was my brand even then, right? So again, your brand, it evolves just like a designer's clothing brand or a car company or anything. It evolves of what's in style now and the setting that you're in. It has different lines, but the core of the brand should generally remain intact.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you had like talked about network and you and I also met through our network, right?
Yes,
And by meeting each other, we increased our valuation a little bit. I feel that I learned from you and you maybe, just maybe,
absolutely.
learned something from me as well. But like talk about your network being one of your assets.
Yeah, so the network is a key asset. And network has, people sometimes say networking kind of gets maybe a bad, unsavory rap, right? It's kind of going around and shaking hands and handing out in the day, handing out business cards. But what I see network is relationships. And so many components of this. One is, I think really, really important to have a mentor. And that's somebody who has stood in your shoes or can very much relate to where you are
Hmm.
and can relate to where you want to be and can give you specific personalized advice. This could be one person who's your mentor, or it could be a series of people. You might go to certain people for mentoring in
Yeah.
certain aspects
Yes.
and other people for mentoring in other aspects. The other thing is you can have what I'd call mentoring moments where you might just go up to a tenured person and ask about one specific thing.
Yeah.
Um, and in my experience, very successful, accomplished people who have risen in an organization, they sometimes people don't want to approach them.
Yeah.
But again, respectful of their time and done in the right way. I'm not suggesting you get a job the first day you make a beeline to the CEO's office, okay? But where it's appropriate, and where you've done the work, where the person is truly driven and asking a very thoughtful question, and they're going to take action on it, and there's a real motivation. Senior people love that because they want to feel relevant, and they see and smell the air of what they were when they were that age or at that stage, and it's very invigorating. So I think mentors are really, really important, but to distinguish too between a mentor and a sponsor, right? A
Oh,
sponsor is someone who will advocate for you, who has the power to advocate for you, could also be a mentor,
got
but
it.
and is able to put you in that position or ask for you to be on that next assignment. Um,
Okay.
those are really, really important people. And you want to create visibility, where you're visible by these folks. And those are also the people to whom appropriately, in a positive way, where you can share what your passions are at work. You don't want to complain about your current role, but to let them know what you would love to do more of, what you're excited about, where you really feel lit up. Because in my experience, many great new openings, they're not really posted or officially posted.
Um,
And it's the people who have expressed a passion. So I think you don't have to tell everybody what your dreams are and what your interests are, but select influential people. That's a great thing to do. And then, look, you have your clients, depending upon the type of work you're in. Those relationships are really
yes.
important. When I left corporate and launched my coaching practice, a number of my clients to start off with were clients from my former
Mm,
life who reached out. They knew me, they liked me, they trusted me, they knew I was professional, they knew I cared. They
yeah.
didn't know if I was going to be a good coach or not, right? But they knew a lot. They knew they were safe, it was confidential. They knew I took work seriously, right? So your clients, past clients, can be very valuable, and your peers, whether it's classmates from college
Yeah.
or a professional school, law school. I have many friends still from law school, colleagues you worked with through the years. As the years unfold, these people advance to very impressive positions. Not all of them, right? But ones do. And you have that connection of having known them through the years. It's just really important to maintain these relationships. They have to be fed and watered,
Yeah.
and touching in and hey, I'm thinking about you, and how's this, and checking in, and not just coming out of the blue when you need them for something.
Yes, yes, to really cultivate those relationships over time and like reach, yeah, it's so that it doesn't seem like you're only reaching out when you need something. Absolutely. So that you can
Yes,
have
it's
a
so
two-way
important. I mean,
conversation.
yesterday I had a great Zoom with an individual who would like to coach with me, but he asked, would it be possible for him? He didn't know me through anybody else. Would it be possible for him to speak with a couple of my clients or former clients? Most people don't ask this, but he
Mhm.
did. And it was reasonable under the circumstances, for various reasons. And it was very easy for me. I reached out to two former coaching clients. They were thrilled. The one, they got right back to me. Now, this is because I keep in touch with them. Even
Yeah.
after they weren't coaching with me anymore, I would touch base on different little things.
Aw.
Not tremendous amount of time, but thoughtful and sincere. So I didn't feel awkward to ask them, and they
Right.
were happy to do it, right? So you can't just parachute in when you need a favor.
I love that. Parachute in when you need a favor. But they also, like, your network can be a really great place if you want to figure out, and if you're trying to start thinking about your expertise, right, which is your next asset that you have. If you're trying to figure out what your expertise is, what your skill set, what your talents are, where your areas of strength. Sometimes it's hard to like do internal reflection on those topics. So your network is also a great place to go and access people that know you
Yeah.
and are familiar with your brand and help you sort of discover what that skill set is, right?
Yeah, I think so. And that could be supervisors can come in, very handy there, right? I mean, that's obviously a big part of your network, a
Right.
key person in your network. Right, because your expertise, that's the how of your why, right? That's the actual skill, the actual talent, the tasks of what you're doing. And you want to be cognizant of what your strengths are, both the hard skills,
Yeah.
right? The technical, the education, the actual task doing, and then the softer skills, the talking, the communicating, the having people follow your ideas and your leadership, even your unofficial leadership, right? Having a fellowship and having an influence. And that expertise is often comprised of areas where you're very strong, probably naturally so, and then you also worked at it, and then areas that are not your go-to, not your strength. And so to have feedback from, and I think it's
Yeah.
really, really important to make it very easy to for the person who is in a position to give you valuable feedback to give it to you, right? Now we don't need a lot of feedback from everybody. If you're not somebody whose advice I would seek, then I don't need your criticism necessarily, right? We don't need from everybody in the peanut gallery, but from those who will give you really constructive, I would call it feed forward, right? It's not criticism, it's forward. And some people are hesitant to give a lot of feedback. They're nice people. I'm not one of these people. I'll give everybody feedback. Okay. I don't have that gene. But some people are very hesitant. So you want to make it easy to say, rather than saying, oh, how did I do or did I not do a good job? But to say, what could I have done better? I have a thick skin. Please let me know even the small things that next time I could do a little more of, I could do a little less of, I could do differently. And then those people will want to keep giving you feedback. They'll
Yeah.
be passionate to give you feedback.
Especially if you show gratitude too, I feel like if you actually appreciate the feedback, people will want to give you more. But if you get defensive, people will not want to give you more
That's right.
feedback,
They
right?
won't. They won't. And I had a direct supervisor early in my career. I was very blessed to work for a number of exceptionally talented people and caring. And he used to, so I was, 2, 3 years into my career, and he was a very senior person, and we would walk out of a client meeting. And I knew during the meeting, he was writing down a list of like 20 things to beat the band as I'm presenting, okay, to a very senior client. And no sooner did we were out the door, and he would go over every single thing that he thought was not an A plus. Now it was probably an A minus. I was not a but he was gonna bring me from good to great, come hell or high water, his death or mine, right? But that's how you develop excellence.
But you also have to have a kind of a thick skin for that,
You
right?
have to have a thick skin. And again, if the person's doing it because they really believe in you, that they believe that you could go from very good to exceptional, and they're willing to put that effort in,
Yeah.
that's different than somebody who's saying, if you don't change these 4 things, you're going to be on probation and fired within a month.
Right.
Versus you did a great job, but I want to tell you what would make you it, right? So
That's
that
that's
can be
so
very
nice.
motivating.
Yeah, that is so nice. And Let me tell you, like in some of my, so yesterday in one of my money talks courses, I actually said, look, you're not going to like everything I have to say, but I'm like that coach that's pushing you to run just a little bit faster so that you can be the best you financially.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are people that are really good at taking that feedback and saying, oh, and really running with it. And there's some other people that are like, oh, they take it personally.
Yeah.
And
And in my experience, those who, and I say this now from the manager perspective, those who wanted the feedback, asked for it, dug into it. And maybe on certain things they fought you a little because they said, well, I don't know, or this or that. But that they were really engaged in it, those are the people who I saw really excel and really grow and become exceptional at their role and beyond.
well, I also feel like you could also use your network to sort of repurpose your expertise too. So say I'm doing the work that you set out for us here, Wendy. My dog agrees.
I hear
She
your
agrees.
dog.
She
Your dog
agrees
is
with
on.
this statement. She knows
She's
where I'm
on
going. She reads my
it.
mind, and she had something she wanted to input. But so say, you're going through your vision, you're like, ooh, I can't get to my vision from here. I need to change the direction of my ship. I need to repackage my expertise to try to get somewhere else. So, like, your network can also be a great place to help you sort of figure out how to repackage it, right?
Yeah. Well, these are people because sometimes, we're so close to ourselves and especially probably especially, maybe earlier to mid career. I think when people get very later in their career, they're usually pretty self more aware of their strengths and transferable skills. But sometimes, like, when it's kind of that earlier in the game, it could be somebody who's they're just enough removed because they're not you to be able to see and have been around enough to see compared to others what really is your exceptional strength and what areas are you kind of pushing a boulder up a hill and could help you identify um, and partner with you really like a thinking partner because it's not just what you're very good at doing, it's also what you love to do and where you're in flow. I'm not saying it's not a lot of work, but that this is your thing, this is your go-to thing to do. And the more I think you can be doing work and tasks that light you up, that you feel great doing, um, as opposed to just things that you are extremely competent in doing, but that might drain you.
Yeah.
Um, and to have somebody to talk that out with, someone who's really trusted and who knows you and has worked with you, that could be really can be very very helpful because certain skills that we have are highly transferable
Yes.
to other roles, some much more higher paying.
For sure, for sure. Can you believe that we've been talking for 40 minutes already, Wendy?
Time
Um,
flies.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you so much for your time. And
Oh,
if
thank you,
anyone's
Jessica.
watching this,
Such a pleasure.
oh,
Your viewers are so lucky to have you.
oh, thank you so much, Wendy. Appreciate that. And if they want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Wendy Schult, Schult. And you can also see me on my website, which is keystoauthenticity.com.
And I just put it in the chat as
Oh, thank you.
well, so that you guys can see it. So that is how you can get in touch with Wendy. Oh, this has been so much fun. I'm going to have to have you back because there's always conversations that we have, and we're like, oh, we have to do a show about this. We have to
Yes,
do a show
we
about
have
this.
many topics. We could talk
Absolutely.
for from now until midnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wendy has sent me like the most inspirational like TED Talks and videos and whatnot. Do you post that anywhere on like your LinkedIn or
You know,
whatnot?
I haven't. I have, as I think I probably mentioned to you in some of our other conversations. I mean, I have like a dozen notebooks of blog ideas. I have so many other separately journals of doodles and drawings and quotes and thoughts. So I'm working my way towards what I'm going to do with all of this.
Okay, that's a side conversation. I can help you with that,
Side
Wendy.
conversation.
Side conversation. It's your network, and we're going to elevate your
Yes. Yes.
valuation.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. I
Oh,
really
thank you,
appreciate it.
Jessica.
And thank you guys out there for joining us as well. We hope you found our discussion on personal branding and self-promotion helpful in your journey towards success. Remember, your personal valuation is not just about your job or career, but also your overall worth as a person. And today's quote, Wendy, is from Carla Harris. And let me tell you, Wendy flipped me Carla Harris, and I am obsessed with Carla Harris now. So thank you. And that's why I said, Wendy, you really should have
Yeah,
like
she
a
has a great. Just so
screen.
years or so, it's Carla Harris spoke at the 2016 Makers Conference. If you Google that, there's a video. I don't know. It's about 15 minutes, and she talks about your brand. And she talks about how the work doesn't speak for itself, and you need to be the advocate for your brand. And she's a pretty strong character, but she makes some great points. I would highly recommend watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And the quote from today is from her. This is the quote I chose, Wendy. It says, "You won this job because you were the best for the job. You are smart, quick to learn, and can quickly acquire any skill you might be lacking." And this quote applies to job opportunities and any opportunity that comes your way. You are capable of deserving of success in all aspects of your life. So, what I want to say is go out there and shine. Keep working on your personal brand, keep promoting yourself, and keep elevating your personal valuation. And remember, where you are in your journey and where you want to be is personal, whether it is career or finances or whatnot. And some of you might actually feel overwhelmed after watching this. Some of you might feel inspired, but some of you might feel overwhelmed and saying, oh my gosh, there's so much I have to think about now about my personal valuation and my brand and my network. You know what? Take a breath, inhale. Feeling overwhelmed is a natural part of life. But breaking your goals down into manageable steps will help you succeed. You're already on the right track just by being here today. And I am thrilled to see the community that we are building here at Her Financial IQ of women committed to financial health, growth, and freedom. Join us again in 2 weeks on May 11th for our next episode. And should you want to continue your money and investing journey outside of the show, check out my personal finance and investing classes at herfiniq.com. Sign up for my mailing list to stay informed about upcoming shows, interviews, panels, workshops, and announcements. And of course, make sure to follow me on all social media platforms at herfiniq. In closing, I'm Jessica Perrone, founder of Her Financial IQ. You've been watching the Her Money and Investing Show. Together, we're learning to build wealth. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great day. Go rock it, girls. Bye. Thank you so much, Wendy.